Hello and welcome to On the Chain. This is Chip. Jeff is on hiatus tonight. Actually, he stepped away for tonight, but we've got a very special guest. We have the digital nomad investor. You know him better as DNI. What's up, DNI?
Hey, a bunch of the same old stuff. Different day. Chip, what's going on? Thanks for having me
Yeah, man, it's great to
aboard.
have you back. I mean, you're obviously a friend of the show. You've been on here a number of times, and way back when we actually we did a show, but we had to shut it down because of that's sometimes there were topics that were just a little pushy and on the edge. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. How the crypto community is really shocking the world right now because they're showing up in full force, and you don't want to mess with the crypto community. We're going to talk about incrementalism. We're going to talk about geopolitics. We're going to talk about XRP, Ripple. Basically, we're going to throw it all in there. You ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Let's do this.
Are you down?
Let's do this.
Welcome to On the Chain.
There we go. Yeah, so I hit the wrong button. So what they did was on the software, they changed the locations. So they used to have it one way, and I was so used to doing it. Now it's like they went from a side by side to like a long list, and that's so what's up, man? So obviously for people that don't know you, you are an OG in the space. You've been around the space for a long time, and you bring a special sort of angle to it. So why don't you just go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about, what you talk about on your channel and some of the things that you've been up to the last couple of years.
Okay. Well, I look at the crypto space through my background and experience working with and for governments, subcontractors, law enforcement, intel, you name it. And I just try and show how those different entities influence our investments in crypto. So that's it in a nutshell. And that's what I cover on my channel.
Where are you coming to from today? Where are you located?
I am in Thailand,
Yeah,
Southeast
good morning,
Asia.
Thailand.
Good morning. Yes, it's Friday morning. It's Friday morning here. So as I keep saying on my channel, I'm coming to you from the future. Well, for
I always like talking
those
to
of
people
you
in the
in
future. That's right. We're still in Thursday, man. You've already hit Friday. This is awesome.
Yeah, Thursday's old news, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's in the past. So yeah, let's talk about a bunch of things. So this crypto bill that, or I should say, this crypto piece of got shoved in this legislation and this massive bill. Now apparently it went from the Senate to the House, and now it's become even more massive. But one of the things that I think kind of shocked everybody was the fact that the crypto community stood up and said, "Oh, hell no." And for 3 days, that puppy did not move. It was just stuck in limbo, not because of the other 2,700 pages, but because of a little bit of legislation in there that was basically going to stick it to the crypto community. And now it's gone to the House. They approved it. They couldn't get the amendments passed. Cynthia Lummis, she wrote that amendment. And so what are your thoughts over there, and how's that being looked over in your neck of the woods?
Well, in this part of the world, we kind of, when someone says SEC, we say SEC who?
Exactly. Right.
It's never changed, anything that we think or do, to be honest with you, for the most part. I mean, other than keeping up with current events. And yeah, of course, the lawsuit affected the price action, so, we pay attention to it from that standpoint. But from the way I look at Ripple and how it's growing, I just kind of follow Brad's lead when he says, 90% of Ripple's business is outside of the US. And, that's so, from our part of the world, that's kind of, at least that's how I look at it. Nothing's changed with Ripple in terms of global growth. And I keep telling people that, hey, if you got into XRP because of its global potential, you shouldn't freak out about the lawsuit.
No.
Because, it's only affecting 1 out of 196 or whatever countries there are in the world now. So that's kind of the perspective I have, and I think a lot of people do on this side of the planet.
So I want to just thank you for saying that. So we got Wen Mullet. Mullet's been back on the show. It's awesome to see him here. And also John Doe said he's sipping on a little Jack Daniels, listening to one of my favorite shows. And
Cool.
and I'm sipping on water tonight, so it's good to see you guys in here. And if you have any questions as they come up, try to get them in there. If you got any questions for D and I, we can certainly cover them. But there's been a lot of discussion about Ripple with this lawsuit, and it seems to me, I want to see what your impression is. What is going on with the SEC as far as, like, how do you think their positioning it is? How do you think they're faring so far with as things go?
Where should I start on that?
Well, start at the beginning.
I mean,
or in middle, or something like that, somewhere along the lines there.
No, I did a show on the motivations for the SEC's lawsuit a while back, and I just threw together like 6 or 7 potential motivations, and none of them had anything to do with protecting the investors, which last I checked, that's their mandate, right? And
that's what their mission statement. That's what it says.
And that's what they keep going by, right? And none of the motivations I came up with pointed towards that. So hey, Jeff. So there, yeah. You can come up with some wild things, from is the people above SWIFT putting pressure on the SEC to stifle the growth of Ripple and XRP because of their interest in SWIFT, as they keep trying to turbocharge their Model T. There's just a lot of motivation. So I think the good thing is that where the crypto community, and especially around this lawsuit, have gotten a little bit more organized by getting some of the lawyers kind of being the tip of the spear, with Jeremy and John and what's the other guy's name? Something Filan.
Jimmy Filan, which I want to unpack a couple of things in a little bit. Yeah, it's great to see that.
They're kind of leading the charge, and they add some I don't want to say validity, but they're able to swim the legal pool a lot better and more succinct than perhaps we can. And so that really helps out when it comes to the movement of people against the SEC. That makes sense.
Great. No, it makes perfect sense. It makes too much sense. That's the problem. It makes too much sense. I want to put Matt Orochi says, hey, if the cross-border party's rocking with music and strobe lights, the U.S. may find itself sitting on the outside of the sidewalk for a while with their AirPods, but eventually they have to knock on the door. It's a pretty cool analogy because at some point, because if we look at it like this, I tweeted something out, it was last week, but it had every flag on it. It showed the U.S. and SEC, and then it had pretty much every other flag that had some kind of regulation around it. And man, that thing was like that tweet went crazy out there. And it just goes to show you the level of where the SEC is and their foibles. But some of the stuff that's happening, like they're resisting turning over documents. Yeah. The problem is, I almost think they're too good. Like, hey, they don't have to cooperate with the court. It's like, no, step back. We don't have to give those. And the judge is like, we highly recommend that you cooperate and provide. There's going to come a time when the judge's not going to be very happy about it. I mean, 3 times requested, they don't have any of the communication. So we'll have to see what happens there.
Yeah.
D&I, surprised to see you. I love it though. D&I been around a while now. He's been an awesome XRP merchandise. If you guys see behind there, and by the way, there's a link to his merch store, but he makes some of the coolest XRP shirts around. Those you can get in the link. You can follow his channel below. So click below, subscribe to him, and also go ahead and click on there. It's really cool stuff. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Chip.
Bonnie's here.
And having worked, with the government, the SEC, their arrogance is unstoppable in their mind. In their mind,
yeah.
In their mind, yeah. And a lot of people say, "Oh, the SEC is worried about, they're making themselves look foolish." They don't care. They made themselves look foolish by filing the suit, and they're just going to drag it out. I hate to say this and be bearer of bad news, but I'd be surprised if it settles this year.
No,
people keep saying it's going to be settled. You keep seeing videos. It's going to be settled on this day and on this day. And I hope people are right. I hope I'm 100% wrong. And I'm a little biased. I've told people this before because I've just gone through a 2.5-year long lawsuit that was like open and shut in my favor. I was the plaintiff.
That's good.
And but it got dragged out by someone using similar tactics of just dragging things out and fighting every little thing. And the Ripple lawsuit's just in discovery. It hasn't even gone to trial, if it's going to go to trial. It's just in discovery, which is the preliminary stage. They're arguing over evidence and the admissibility of evidence and things like that. So all the SEC cares about right now is dragging things out, for whatever reason. I'm sure there's probably 3 or 4 or more motivations. And that's why it doesn't make sense to us, is we can't come up with one clear-cut motivation when there's probably more than one. And that's why it's confusing.
Well, I think the other thing that seems just in like crazy town is that it'd be different. I mean, most of the time you have government officials. Let's face it. When Ted Cruz stood up there on the floor and he gave that speech and he said, "There's probably not 5 senators in here that even have a clue of what blockchain or cryptocurrency is." I was like, okay, nice, well done, right? He says maybe not even 5. He's kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt, right?
The doubt.
It's just like, okay, and even include himself in there saying, but he said we haven't had a hearing on it. We haven't really dug into it, but we slipped it in the middle of the night. It's something that could stifle innovation and growth in this country. And all is going to happen. He kind of alluded to the fact that, so what? They'll just leave, And I love when Garlinghouse was polled when he was given that interview last week where they said, would you move out of the country? He says, I'm not willing to go there yet, is what he said. Yet. So that means, but when push comes to shove, it's like they leave. They're in the 1 minute they're hanging out in San Francisco. The next minute, you knock on the door, you open up, and there's nobody there. In the dead of night, they move to Singapore, the UK, somewhere in Asia where it's a lot more friendly. And what's happening in your neck of the woods is that there's an understanding of what the opportunity is. Kind of like what happened in the internet here. But man, we're in crazy times right now because we have politicians that their main modus operandi is to throat punch us, then shove our face in the ground, and then drag us around hooked up to a back of an F-150 Ford pickup. That's kind of how and they're like, "Are you done yet? You want some more, pal? You good?" That's kind of how they treat us. And no more is there we the people or listen to the people. But for 3 days, they tried to do that. And the best part of it was, I'll have to see if I can dig up the tweet, but one of the knuckleheads that basically hung up the vote was unanimous, and it had to be unanimous. And he put out a blatant lie, and I hammered him on Twitter because you know why? Because you can. Because you can.
at least for the time being until you get
before that happens, you know what I mean? And,
right.
And what people don't know is you injected a show called Deep Dive, and I'm going to be very careful how I word this, but you two were the first 2 to call exactly what happened in early February of 2020, and that's all I'll say about it. But you guys called it, and it's amazing how true that rang. I mean, but again, we had to take those shows down because, well, they kind of took them down. So we just want to play by the rules. Nobody gets hurt. Everybody's friendly and all that stuff. But yeah, going into some deep topics, and like the whole idea is you got to explore this stuff. We got to workshop it, right? That's what I love about like here on the chain. People come in the chat, they share stuff, they got opinions. We throw them up there, we talk about it, and we got Ed says, "Hey Chip, hey DNI." So that's good. Always be checking in.
Hey, what's going on?
Hans Loaded right there. Thinking Crypto did an awesome interview with Tom Emmer. That was really awesome, and I haven't had a chance to watch it all yet, but I know it kind of came out a little bit later. So we'll see what happens there. But man, so much going on, DNI. I mean, going back to what's happening with Ripple, is it a wishful thinking the reason people wanted to settle? Because I don't see anything that smells of settlement. And the reason that Jeff and I talk about this often is, what do you get out of it? If you're going to settle, you're going to say like, okay, if you settle and they come out and say, okay, listen, today is XRP. We don't consider that a security. However, we're just talking about the pre-2015 XRP. Maybe it wasn't totally decentralized. Okay, whatever. They got to go prove it, and with the Howey test. But they could have just come out of the gate and said that, right? They could have said, look, the same way they kind of sort of gave Ethereum a pass. Like, yeah, we believe at one time it could have been centralized when they had a year-long sort of ICO release. And by the time that they released it, it was a year later and they pre-sold it. Nothing to see there. Don't look behind that door because they gave it the thumbs up.
Yeah, my concern is, and I mean many as well, is that any settlement that the SEC is probably offering early on will not include any clarity with the regulations. And so that's that. And, you know, of course, asking or demanding that Chris and Brad give up all of their money that they got in compensation from Ripple. So, you know, that's, I think, what the SEC will probably use for leverage against an early settlement and even in a long-term negotiation to get their way. They're like, okay, we'll settle, but this is what our position is. No position. And
yeah, well,
so, you know, and there's no guarantee that even if there is a settlement, that there will be clarity, you know, but then again, I don't think Brad and Chris would agree to that, and they would, you know, force it to go to trial. But, you know, those are some things to think about when it comes to an early settlement.
Yeah, I want to throw this up here. I did find it. So this is Richard Shelby. He says, I supported Senator Toomey's cryptocurrency AMDT. I know of its importance to innovation and job creation, but I believe it pales in comparison to the security of our nation, which is why I called for a vote on my defense infrastructure amendment. Yeah, amendment. Yeah, it's unfortunate that Dems blocked. Yeah, okay. And I basically, here's what I had to say. I said, take note. This is what a lying, dog-faced pony soldier looks like. Better said, a lying senile politician who really stepped in it. Instead of taking the heat, he lies like a dirty politician that he is. He didn't represent his constituents, just his tired old ways. Was that being too harsh?
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah. Did you get any feedback from that? Or is this the one tweet you said that you got a lot of traction on?
No, this wasn't the one. This one, I don't think I think this one was banned or something. But then, because what I was Charles Hoskinson, this is why I had to go. I said, okay, I got to go. So Charles Hoskinson did this. So let's put his on there. He says, this is what you call a grade A piece of BS. On behalf of everyone with a functioning brain, we see through your lives, retire or resign. He cut to the chase. I had a little more fun with some of the verbiage, but right.
No, that was
I gotta tell you,
great.
I'm really loving Hoskinson, man. I'm really starting to like this guy more and more because he is calling it out. He's yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say some of the stuff I'm like really reviewing his timeline because he's putting all kinds of great stuff out there, man. It's really good to see. We got to get him on here. This was another good one. Look at this one.
Did you see Jeff? Did you see Jeff's in the room?
Yeah, I saw Jeff. I put him up a couple times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I put him up there.
Did you?
So look at this, DNI. Look at some of the people in our realm of the living scale here. Let's look at this. So Hoskinson put this out. He's like, 2015 is closer than 1990 until we meet again. It's like, you know, and it's like, and then he goes, what was his other take on that? He said, GD, God damn it, Skeletor. So it put some. Just put some good stuff out there, man. He's a funny dude.
Yeah, fun stuff. Yeah, politicians don't have a sense of humor anyway.
Well, I don't think anybody has a sense of humor anyway. I think everything's funny, everything's game, but it's like, oh, no. I mean, there used to be like, oh, you're not PC, forget about it. PC, now it's just like there are no jokes. Yeah. You know, I mean, you can't be funny. You can't laugh at yourself. You know, the best comedians ever out there were always the ones that self-deprivation humor, right? Could make fun of themselves, make fun of everything. There was nothing off limits. Today, it's like they remember at college, they used to do the college circus back in our day. All of them would hit the college circuit because that was like, you know, college kids love to go laugh, and it was like offbeat humor. They can't go to college campuses. You want to know why? Because they're banned, because they're canceled, because it won't be allowed. There's no free expression, freedom of thought. Everybody has to be put in a basket, and that basket has to be a certain size, and it has to be regulated, and it has to be right. That's how we That's more or less how we are right now.
Well, in some countries, yeah, there's the one state narrative, and if you go
Some
against
countries.
the one state narrative,
Some
uh,
countries.
well, yeah,
I mean, come on.
I'm trying to be neutral, a little bit neutral.
No, man.
It's you know, there you have one state narrative, and even if you put out accurate information, if it doesn't go along with the one state narrative, um, you know, you get censored. You know, I put out a tweet about that. You know, and it made someone did a meme reference to Germany from days gone past, and it was accurate. You know, and it just, and a few people stood up like, how can you make that reference? I'm like, does any of this look familiar? One state
Yeah.
narrative, or you're censored. You know, injected versus uninjected. I didn't use these words, but uninjected. You know, believers versus deniers. You know, color versus white. Anything to pit all of us against each other. I'm going off the rail here a little bit. Anything to divide and conquer us, and it's easier to control us. So, don't ask me how I got on that.
Well, I'll tell you, because the other night someone made a great comment. They're like, all right, guys, enough with the politics. And I'm like, the problem is it's all politics today.
Yeah.
It's not just go hang out, enjoy yourself, drink a few beers. No, everything's got a narrative. Everything's got an official sort of a byline. And that's kind of how it's been. It's like, one of the other things that happened over I gotta be careful the way I say this, but at a certain time, late 30s in Germany, they said a certain group of people were ill and sick and would get everybody else sick. That sounds a little familiar to me. And then, of course, those are bad people. And I'm going to be very careful the way I word it. I think we can read between the lines on that whole thing. But that's exactly how this stuff starts. But what I'm seeing that's different is I'm seeing people say, no, man, that's all right, enough. Here's the thing: you back an animal into a corner, and after a while, they're gonna go ballistic. Well, with people, when you lock them up and take away their businesses and punch them in the face, and then attack their crypto, and then drop a lawsuit on the greatest use case to ever come along with crypto, and Ripple behind it with on-demand liquidity. I'm sorry, man, we're not sitting back and taking it, DNI.
Right. And I keep saying the more we cover the doom and gloom, that inversely to me shows how much opportunity there is for digital assets. So that's good news for us. So, to me, there's an inverse relationship there, where the worse certain areas of society get, the better that improves our opportunities as investors in crypto.
Right on. Hey, I wanted to do a segue a little bit here, because Mike Morath sent this over to DM this to me, and I watched, and I just thought it was excellent. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but this is Stansberry Research. They had on Jim Rickards, and he basically,
who's he?
Yeah, who's he, right? So the funny thing about Rickards is like, this is all same stuff that you've said, Jeff said, I've said. It's a lot of stuff, but I thought it was going to be something interesting. Let's listen to it. Just one question here that got queued up. But the Stansberry Research, they put out some good stuff too. I know they had another good one last week. But let me add this in here. And guys, please let me know if you hear this.
When we got off the gold standard, it was to many.
You can hear that? Okay, good.
Economists delight, who thought or still think that gold is a barbarous relic, and that we are much better off on the fiat money system. And in fact, our economy would have never thrived had we gone off the gold standard. Were we better off before or today, Jim?
Well, we were much better off. Actually, we were better off before the Fed. The United States, people hate central banks. We had two that we got rid of before the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. But the first bank in the United States we got rid of in 1812. The second bank we got rid of in 1836 under President Andrew Jackson. From 1836 to 1913, there was no Fed, and it was the greatest period of prosperity, low inflation, invention, efficiency, almost in recorded history. So we get along fine without the Fed, and we're much better off with the gold standard, no doubt about it. When you said economists criticize gold, I would just remind the audience of two things. Number one, economists are wrong about almost everything. So if you actually look at their track record in that sense, they seldom get things right. Certainly the Fed never gets the forecast right. And I wrote a book which I know you're familiar with, The New Case for Gold. But that book is not just another book on gold. I specifically refute, there's 7 or 8 persistent criticisms of gold that you hear over and over again. They're all wrong. And I just took them one by one and said, here's why it's wrong, here's why it's wrong. And so that's kind of the baseline in terms of understanding why we're better off with the gold standard.
So the economy thrived better under a gold standard than the fiat monetary system. And now, would you argue that the greatest point in favor of the gold standard is that the Fed wouldn't be able to expand or retract the monetary supply as much or as little as they want?
Well, not as much as they want. That's a very good point. People say, well, the standard criticism is wrong, but the standard criticism is, the great thing about the Fed is they can do that. They can expand the money supply and contract the money supply as needed to keep inflation under control or to grow with the economy. Well, you can have that with a gold standard. In fact, we did from 1913 to 1971 in various ways. We had a gold standard, but we also had discretionary monetary policy. The Fed was expanding and contracting the money supply from 1913 to 1971, and we had a gold standard. So they're not incompatible at all. But it does mean that you can't go too far. So it kind of puts a lid on things. Until 1945, the law in the United States was the base money supply, M0, that's what the Fed controls, could be 2.5 times the U.S. gold hoard, the gold in our possession at the market. So taking originally $20.67 an ounce, later $35 an ounce, take the amount of gold times $35 an ounce, and whatever that number was, multiplied by 2.5, and that's how big the money supply could be. But so you can't go.
Yeah. So, I mean, he goes on a little bit more too. They asked about cryptocurrency, but I think, what are your thoughts about the way he's approaching this, talking about the Fed that way?
Well, I agree that the gold standard keeps a check and balance in place from the Fed doing what they've been doing, these last couple of years or however long they've been out of control, printing up money. So that is a check and balance, keeping them from going crazy, printing up money, so to speak. And then also he talked about the ratio 2.5 times, and that you can still allow the economy to grow. You can adjust that ratio, and that way you can still grow. And if you do still need to increase the money supply, you can, but you can't just do it, like a drunken sailor, so to speak, like the Fed's doing now. So it's a check and balance. It's a check and balance, but it's adjustable within reason to keep some sort of sense of balance in the economy and economic system itself, without over revving it by overprinting.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good observation. I think really where we're probably going to next is this: the big showdown now is centralization versus decentralization. And one of the things that Rickard talks about, which we talk about a lot, Jeff and I talk about all the time, is the fact that the CBDC, it's not blockchain, it's not crypto, it's a central, bank digital currency, which means he says, what's the difference if it's a fiat or whatever, which is what Jeff and I always say, what's the difference? But I mean, ultimately it's coming down. That's where I think they're starting to wake up. It's I always thought it would take them even a little bit longer, but the central banks, everybody's going to go down fighting. They're going to go down with the ship. They're going to tooth and nail, and they're going to attack. And so don't you really see that in this Federal Reserve too, because you don't have your sovereignty, because you don't control the currency. The Fed's never been audited. And how do you build a system built on debt? Borrow $1, okay, now you got to borrow another $1 because you got to pay the interest on the first $1, and so on and so forth. And then the 2.5 times gets way below and past to where it's multiples of 10 over a period of time. And so where do we go from here? Where do you see this where do you see it ending up? This whole battle between centralization and decentralization.
Well, just to address the earlier part of that, in my opinion, I even put it on the back of one of my shirts here at the bottom. I said we got to build a economic system based on value, not debt. And I suggested digital assets and gold and some combination thereof. And it doesn't have to be gold. And gold is it could be gold, silver, precious metals, whatever you want to use, oil, I don't
Yeah.
care. But there has to be a system based on value, not debt. We already saw what happened, with a debt based system. So the issue with the reason why the powers that be, the globalists may fight that, is there's less of an opportunity to manipulate things in their favor. But who knows? I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's lesser so. So, of course, the globalists, want centralization, they want control, they want power. And people often ask me, well, why do these goofballs want so much control and power? They already got a lot of it. They already got enough money to spend for, 100 lifetimes. Why do they keep wanting more power and control? And in my opinion, power and control leads to freedom. And so the more power and control they have, the more freedom they have. And who doesn't want, an unlimited amount of freedom? So they'll lean towards centralization, but the world is going towards decentralization. And, the only thing that really keeps us from really knocking the globalists off the planet is the fact that they're more organized than us. We have billions more people than, for now, yeah, and they have billions more people, or we have billions more people than they do. But they're more organized, and so they control things. So the more organized we get, and the more we push towards decentralization, the more we'll, control things. If that answers your
No,
question.
I think that answered really well. I wanted to hit a comment in here.
Yeah.
So NA, Blockfolio app FTX is now giving 7% APY yield on XRP. Anybody tried it yet? Is it legit? Well, I will say this, that the Miami Heat Arena, they paid a couple $100 million, whatever, just to put their name on it. It's like FTX, right? That's one of the things they did. And also, too, they acquired Blockfolio. That was for 150 million. They actually flipped the name pretty quick. They bought it, they got it. So, and if you see the CEO behind here, it's a brilliant mind. He's got crazy hair. He's brilliant
cool.
mind. Yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him. He's approachable. He seems like a real guy. He's not one of these. And he'll tell it the way it is. He has no fear around that. They just did a 900 million raise, almost $1 billion they raised. So yeah, they're in a good position right now. So, thoughts on that? I mean, just on the onset, it would look, they're regulated, and I would think that they're more institutional on the FTX side, but now they're starting to move all over now with the Blockfolio acquisition. So they're making big moves, man. They're making big moves, and they have a chance to be pretty soon potentially bigger than the biggest, the Goldman Sachs of the world and all that. That's where they're headed. And who knows if FTX, you hear one day, acquires one of the big banks, which is what Jeff brings up all the time, is which would be first, the banks acquiring, the crypto side, or the crypto side acquiring the banks? What's your take on that?
Talk about a battle, huh?
Right?
Geez. I like that guy, the CEO. I can't remember his name. I've watched a number of the interviews.
Sam Bankman-Fried is his name.
There we go. Yeah. And because of his trading, and he did some arbitrage trading. So that's kind of how I ended up ending up with watching him, but staying because of his, other views on crypto and business views of what's going on. So yeah, I mean, they're doing good things there. So that's about all I can say. Yeah.
And he's got the hair, man.
He's like a more polished version of Vitalik in some ways. It's like he's a distant cousin, but had, different parents, and he doesn't skip
meals. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Yeah. He's very watchable, from that standpoint.
He's got a good head of hair too, man. I mean, that's a solid hair. I mean, that's what's nice. I mean, like here, like you put him in a thumbnail here, and he looks like Crazy Town right there. It's like, but Sam Bankman-Fried is like, he's the real deal. And I would tend to put guys like, Sam, Bankman-Fried, who's an up and coming, or, someone like an Alex Mashinsky, who, look at his record. It's like people go like, I mean, you're going to stake your crypto somewhere. I'm sorry, man. I'm going with something that's regulated in the US, because the regulators are tough, but also too, they'll come down on you. They'll break you down. Meanwhile, if you're operating outside of regulation, so it's a fine line, right? It really, really sort of depends where you're coming from as far as, the whole, regulation aspect of it. I mean, like last night we had on Antonio Bras, and he's running an exchange called Blockwake out of New York. And these guys, one of the things that really we didn't even talk about it last night. I'm like, Antonio, we didn't even talk about the low fees, like 0.2%, and full liquidity. They're lining up all these massive liquidity partners on institutional side. So you'll be able to it's not like when there's a mini bull run, you try to get your stuff off of Coinbase. No. You wait for 5 or 6 days until it settles back down. You're like, yeah, you can get it off now, but at that point it's too late. So that was something we were addressing a little bit last night of this speed, liquidity. And again, you look at, and I see some of the stuff. Stellar's in the news. I had a couple stories here with Stellar. My wife is Chilean. The Chilean peso, the digital peso, is launched. They launched on Stellar today, and I'm like, call your friends down there and tell them they launched on the wrong one, man. What are you thinking there? So,
yeah, no, I think people, in the U.S. Should explore, their opportunities for crypto outside of the U.S. At the very least as a backup. Like I'm not affected by, none of my cryptos in the US at all. And, so that's one thing. There's opportunities out there for, people to invest outside. Now I know like Binance, they're segregated by Binance.USA and then Binance.com.
Yeah.
And, if you guys, if you know how to use VPNs, there's ways around those things, except when it comes to verifying in your ID. But apart from that, just explore some options outside of the U.S. I don't know how I got on that one either, but
I mean,
when it comes to crypto,
yeah, when it comes to crypto, I mean, there's a cold storage as well, but because you don't know what they're going to do to exchanges. I mean, one of the things Gensler has brought up, he called it his pal Elizabeth Warren, and he wants more power. He wants to be able to write. The problem is the legislation's not there. Instead of sending these demand letters and Warren sending him a letter, how about she just goes back into Congress and digs out the token taxonomy? It's really one of the most perfectly executed bills that would move everything forward, and you would see massive, just through the roof crypto. One of the things I think that they're missing here with all this is they want to pin on the nefarious things going on. Meanwhile, the banks are doing billions, if not trillions a year in money laundering, and they're just like, oh, we'll fine you because you're too big to fail, and oops, we didn't know. And
that's their buddies too, so that's okay. It's okay when your buddy steals, but it's not okay when your competitor steals, or even if they do. So you can just threaten that they're doing it, whether they are or not. And another thing I wanted to bring up too is the fact of Ripple Labs being, domiciled in the USA. It only affects them so much. Number one, it only affects within the borders of the US. It doesn't have anything to do with the XRP and Ripple around the planet. That's why Ripple continues to grow. Nothing's changed at Ripple headquarters except, in the legal department. They're busier. And I just keep kind of pounding that into folks that, Ripple's business as usual for Ripple. They're growing around the world. And that's why we got into it. As I mentioned earlier, if you got into it, because of its global opportunities, all the different global verticals that they've said they want to get into. They're not just going to do cross-border remittances. That's right out of Brad's mouth. He's like, we want to get, going on that area first, that vertical first. And we'll continue, to explore verticals outside of that. And they will, all the money. Where's that phrase up there? All the money. They're going to look at all these different things that they can do. There was just a little bit of traction about them getting into gaming, even though it's a huge market. But that's the beauty of Ripple and XRP is the global opportunities. That's why we all got into it. So that's why I keep telling people, don't sweat the lawsuit. I don't follow it daily. The only thing I get little updates from watching Jeremy's videos, and Crypto Eddie covers it a little bit. Yeah. I know you guys do, of course.
We cover it as well.
you know, but and it's good to keep up on it, and I'm glad there are people like you guys and everyone else covering it, so people like me can just kind of zoom in and get the
Right.
highlights. But I don't myself personally, I don't sweat the lawsuit. I don't
Oh, I
I don't
never
let it.
have.
Yeah,
I mean, Jeff and I are like a small minority. I mean, there's a bunch of people out there that said, "Oh, when Gensler gets there, they're going to settle. Oh, then when this happens, they're going to settle. Oh, when this happens, they get settle.
yeah,
3 strikes and you're done. I'm sorry, you're done. So you can sit there and next week it's going to move. Not next week. Did I say next week? I meant the third Thursday of the month. Is it the third
yeah.
Thursday of the month or so? And that's fine, right? Because we want to keep people pumped and optimistic and everything. But the bottom line of it is, when that came out, Jeff and I were the first ones to say we ripped through it. We dissected it and said this is a absolutely weak and pathetic lawsuit.
Hmm.
And the fact that they are saying, using like colorful language in there, it's like colorful language. So what? It's like, they were reckless. Okay, so
Yeah, what does that mean?
what does that
Reckless in a
mean?
financial.
Right?
Yeah, give us some details on recklessness. And
They were
yeah,
reckless.
I agree with you. Of course the lawsuit was weak. They had to know that. They didn't care. They're just like, hey, let's just throw it out there and run with it. And it's obvious by their failure to comply with the document submission during discovery, a real basic stage in discovery, and just to flaunt the fact that they're not going to comply with that. It's unfortunate the judge isn't, doing something, holding them in contempt or anything else, but that's kind of to be expected. And I was really surprised in going through my lawsuit how much latitude judges have when it comes to just
Mhm.
operating outside of the rule of law.
Yeah, feelings.
I mean, and that's, so if you come to asking yourself, like, why didn't the judge do this, that, or the other thing, their motivations are often different than complying with the rule of law. I've heard someone say, and it may have been one of the attorneys, like, well, I think it was Jeremy. Uh, the judge did this because she's worried about if this ever comes up upon appeal, or if this case is used as precedent for another case. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, I guess that's what a judge has to think about, but that's personal motivation. You don't want to be appealed too much as a judge. But hey, the rule of law should really be the guiding spirit here. And even that isn't in this case, in some situations, not all of it. And I'm not going to try and supersede anything Jeremy or John says, but that's just some things that came to mind with that latitude. And like I said, I'm biased. I'm because of what I went through in my case, and just shaking my head when judges do certain things like, I can't believe you just did that. That's so contrary to the law, or you're ignoring the law. And we're going to see that in this case. That's because so many different motivations. Same with the SEC. They all
Yeah.
got multiple motivations.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I know that in what I would do too, because you have judges who interpret law when the law is pretty clear about how it states something, and then there's interpretation, and just every district, and even districts that have different judges have different formats, different this and that. What goes in their court, it's almost like there are these mini sort of, I don't know, rulers are like this is the way it is in my court, and this is what we do.
Yeah.
That's a
Their
fiefdom,
own.
because
Yeah.
it's exactly what it's like. And then when you're in there, when you're there, you will bend the knee, and they will explain how it is. They're just there to interpret, to basically enforce the law, not trying to interpret it for something that fits their narrative.
Agenda. Yep.
It falls against it falls sort of against um, the political slant or whatever. I wanted to throw this up here because Jimmy Filan put out another great thing. He put together this little paper here. This is a summary of the upcoming events and outstanding items. And it was cool of him to put this together so we could kind of like see it. On August 16th, Ripple's response to the SEC emergency motion for discovery conference regarding Slack communications and any motion to seal exhibits. Now, the funny thing about the Slack, I mean, I've been using Slack for years. I love it. It's one of my favorite communication tools, and we leverage it in our company. And to me, it's brilliant. It's the best one. There's some that, like, a lot of people that use Microsoft Teams and some like lower level, more corporate stuff. But you can spin up apps on there. It does a lot of stuff. You can do webhooks, all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, this is interesting because I'm wondering how this came about. How would they know that internally they've been leveraging Slack? Now, I'm guessing it must have come up in an earlier discovery, because don't forget they've had 2.5 years of discovery, but then now they want more discovery, and what they say is between employees. Now, to me, it would seem immaterial if it's between employees. And you and I are both working for Ripple, and I'm like, hey man, you see that? Yeah, that's the dumbest thing. We're joking back and forth, and they're like, what are you gonna do? Bring it in court and say, you see, look at this. DNI and Chip were talking about this. It's like, so now if there's key employees, but again, something to say off the cuff, is that
Yeah, it
relevant?
can be misinterpreted. Yeah.
Is it relevant?
How's long Slack been around?
It's been around a long time. I want to say since 2015, maybe. Slack.
Okay, so after the Jed McCaleb days, right?
I'm trying to think of when it's been around.
That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, well, that's the other part of this thing. How come they're not worried about the dumping, the consistent dumping? Dean put a great tweet out about this. He's dumping. He was one of the original guys.
Yeah.
So hang on a second.
He was there before Brad, right? He was before Brad.
Founder. He was one of the original founders. Got gifted all that XRP, right?
How did he skate away from this, and how did he skate away from the Mount Gox debacle? I'm sure, knowing what I know about law enforcement, trust me, they use a wide net when they're going after people to gather information at the very beginning. And so McCaleb was interviewed, I guarantee you, by someone connected to the SEC. So
go further than that.
Okay. And so how did he, I'm being rhetorical here. How did he skate? I know how he skated, in my opinion, in my eyes. It's clear cut how he's not only did everything that Chris and Brad are accused of doing, he continued to do it afterwards, and he isn't being sued. So the only way you get out of that is cooperating with the SEC. So I'm sure he did.
Exactly.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, I think it's my opinion that he cooperated with the SEC. I don't care what anyone says.
It's called rolling over, is what it's called, and he rolled right over that and said, because there was a period of time too at this lawsuit hit, there was a ceasefire on all of the dumping, and then on like flicking a switch, it magically, methodically started up again. So there was something else going on there. If anybody knows, I don't know when Slack. I feels like I've been using it forever, but I'd like to know when Slack came. Maybe it's 10 years ago, maybe, because I kind of seem to think maybe back 2010. Maybe it's hard to know. If you guys can research.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sorry, someone in the comments, Sophie said, Tiff said she and Hodor use Slack. I actually had a little chat with Tiff about Jed, because she always tried to, impress on us that she had some sort of, friendship or whatever with him. So I really pressed her on it. I said, listen, did Jed roll over or what? Because she probably knows. Maybe not, and because she seems to be in on all those, TMZ stuff. And so she wouldn't answer the question. Finally, she just, after asking it to her like 5 or 6 times, she's like, I don't know. But she was really avoiding answering the question directly, doing everything she could except signing off.
Hemming and hawing everything.
Oh yeah, very, very. And I was just real direct with it. And I'm like, so, what do you know? What do you know? Did he roll over? Did he cooperate with the SEC? Why did he skate? Blah, 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 blah. So I'm sure he did,
So on the 17th, we've got the SEC's response to Ripple's motion for discovery conference regarding the SEC's improper assertion of deliberative process privilege and any motion to seal exhibits. 31st, the fact discovery is the deadline. I'm sure that potentially could get extended. October 15th is the expert discovery deadline, and then we're still waiting for decisions on whether the court will hold a telephone conference to discuss the discovery disputes regarding the deliberative process privilege and the Slack communications. The motion to intervene that John Deaton filed And I'm surprised that was supposed to get a response within a certain period of time, and I think that was supposed to be by the end of March. Last time I checked, we're in August, so that was like because they're really caring a lot here, DNI. They really care so much about what's going on with the seven. Now I think it's 19,000 people who have signed off on the motion to intervene. Got the SEC's motion to strike Ripple's lack of due process and fair notice affirmative defense. I think they blew that when Roisman and Pierce came out in middle of July last month and asserted that there wasn't any clarity in the space. They really didn't know, and blah blah blah. And that could have been planned too, because they have a different political affiliation than Mr. Gensler. But Mr. Gensler, coming from MIT, by the way, DNI, did you know he went to MIT? You know, he taught there.
You know, I thought, was there a video out on YouTube about that? Maybe one a while ago.
Yeah, he might have name dropped that in every interview. You know, I taught it. I'm like, all right, buddy, let's put you on the spot here. Why don't you, Johnny on the spot, get up there and start handling this? But a lot of it is to not, like John Deaton was on here and he said, a lot of it is they're so bent on winning at any cost. Yeah. They don't want to look bad. And basically the lawsuit of the century, this century, this is going to be the defining thing. And it's like his name's on it, right? If you say, who was the commissioner? It's not going to say who was the commissioner. Oh, Pierce. Oh, wait, Roisman. No. They're going to say who was the chair when that happened. So he's going to go down in infamy no matter what, right?
Well, he's tied to that. Before I forget, just as a little detour,
go ahead.
I just found this out before we went live. If anybody has been, I hope this is okay to say this on your channel.
Be careful, DNI.
No. It's not like censorable stuff.
Okay.
It's about Coinbase. If that's okay. If anyone had any problems with getting like scammed while being a Coinbase customer, kind of pay attention to my account, my tweets, or email me or DM me, because I have a conference call with an attorney about starting a class action lawsuit in the next few days. So if you've had, your account's been looted or what have you, there's thousands of people that it's happened to.
Wow.
And I did like I don't know if you want to call it a forensic audit on what happened, but I narrowed it down to it being an internal theft issue, and Coinbase employees, which have already been caught doing wash trading and insider trading. So they have criminals working at Coinbase. That's my opinion. That's not the opinion of this show.
But that can't be, because it's regulated by the SEC. That there's no way that is true.
Well, to be honest with you, I brought this up to the Attorney General of California. Was it California? I think they're based in.
Probably, yeah.
I even contacted their and wrote a formal complaint to their bank in New York, and everyone just passed. All they did was no one would investigate Coinbase. All they said was, we will forward your complaint on the Coinbase, which are the people the complaint is about.
Right. Yeah. Hey, let me give it to hey, by the way, the fox is robbing the hen house. Well, let's just let's talk to the fox and see what's going on.
The fox denied it. Yeah.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just kind of hanging out, kind of strolling by every once in a while, and not doing anything. Not me. Paws are up here.
Again, this is just something I'm working on. Has nothing to do with the Jeff and Chip show or on the chain. But I have a conference call, and we're going to explore class action lawsuit. If you go on Reddit, there's like hundreds, if not thousands of people that have been scammed the same way, same exact way. Their accounts are getting looted, and then customer service just says, oh, it's on you. But I found out, I did a search of some transaction history with the IP addresses, and through the use of VPNs and things like that, I figured out how that it has to be the employees. It can't be external. So, so in my opinion, what I found, the evidence stated and showed and proves is that the employees are looting accounts at Coinbase. So
I think the FCC would be interested in that. Like, file a complaint with them yet?
You
file a complaint with them yet? Or
not yet. No, the attorneys are going to pick it up. I've exhausted everything I can do, law enforcement wise and legal wise, as a civilian. So that's why I looped in the legal. So it's one of my my business partners and friends, attorney in California. So it's good that he's based out of there.
Oh
So
yeah, for
anyway,
sure.
that's just a little detour, has nothing to do with today's episode or show, but I wanted to throw that out there
Well,
because
it does, because if you're looking out for people and people have a chance at some sort of to get
recourse.
involved. Yeah, recourse is what we're looking for. I mean, it's always a good thing. It's always good as a public service announcement to get it out there. And other people watching the show, the curious thing about the show is that 75-80% of the people watch the playback. So it's really good to for people to know about it, because look, you help one person, hey, that's all it takes. One person, two people, and there's strength in numbers. It really is. I mean, and I know other people that are putting together similar, because I don't want to badmouth other things, but there's other entities out there that have done things that were not really on the up and up. And I know a lot of people that have banded together for a class action there. But again, this is what I always say, is that we have the power. We are the majority, and we are the ones responsible at the end of the day, because the politicians and everybody else is a small minority. They act like they've got all the power, but when push comes to shove, they will cry like little schoolgirls when it comes down to it. But you got to get us to that point. But it can happen for sure.
Yeah. I noticed one of the comments here that I thought was really good by XRP Panic. He says he thinks it's good that Jed's not involved in the lawsuit, because he'd do a lot of damage if he got called in by the SEC, which is a good point. That's a very good thing. I would agree, because he just doesn't present well to authority, and
well, that's one of the reasons that early days, like owning Stellar, I like that he sort of backed off. He got a good, pretty competent CEO. You notice as soon as he kind of stepped off the reins, things started working.
right.
I don't have anything against him personally, but he has a track record that's not really, it's not admirable. And the whole idea of the dumping stuff, I mean, he has to dump it. He doesn't really have any other choice, because he started another company, and how would it look if he's hodling another coin of a company he used to be part of? So I kind of get part of that. But dumping it all, and what's he doing with the money, and how come he's dumping it, and he doesn't work at the company anymore? There's other people too, like Greg Kidd. There's other people that have a pretty nice stash, a nice little stack somewhere, bags. But the whole thing, just to me, just kind of, and the last administration on the way out the door kicked it down. But this is through a long time, because they were bringing it up all the time. Ripple was, different people at Ripple, Garlinghouse was like, hey, we want clarity, we want clarity, we want clarity. They've been talking about it for years, and the whole time under the the kind of the eye of the SEC. But I still don't understand where this is going to go. But I have a good feeling the way it's going to turn out for everybody. I have a feeling it's going to be the Ripple test will be alive and well.
So they're going to come up with a legal precedent and have a Ripple test, is what you're proposing?
Well, I'm not proposing. I think it was Rosalind Layton that brought it up. I think in a Forbes article, someone had brought it up saying, hey, we need a Ripple test. And a couple of writings out there had said that, we need the Ripple test. And, and I'm not even sure it was her. I think it might have come from one of the academics. I don't know. You read so much stuff these days, like pinpointing it where it was, and it's kind of a difficult thing to find sometimes. But what I wanted to say to everybody is, guys, when you're here, if it's your first time here, you guys, there's something you can do, which is like, subscribe, and click that notification bell. Just click that subscribe button and click that notification bell. That way you're notified anytime we go live. Boomity, boomity, boom. And then there you go here. And there's another one. And then, of course, you guys can follow us on Twitter. We're at On The Chain with a _ separating it. And follow DNI too. DNI, all of his information is in his. You want to buy his merch, those cool shirts behind him, hit him up, man. They're cool shirts. If you want to check his YouTube channel out down below, follow him on Twitter, click on the link right now so you don't forget. And that's pretty much it. I mean, my gosh, that was the fastest hour in history. I mean, Jeff and I always talk about how fast that was. I mean, See, right about now, and if you were doing one of your streams, you were just sort of just kind of just start getting going, hitting your not even your stride yet, just kind of getting
just
there,
waking
right?
up, man. Just waking up.
Yeah, well, it's 8 o'clock. Have you had your coffee yet? It's 8 a.m. over there.
Just some water. Just some water. Yeah.
Are you a coffee drinker?
No.
No.
No, I'm in Thailand. Thailand, most people don't know, is actually the home of Red Bull. That's where Red Bull started. Everyone thinks it was the U.S. or
I did
somewhere
not know
else,
that.
but look on Wikipedia. You can read the story about Red Bull and how it started. I got a fun Red Bull story if I can close with that.
Oh, go ahead, man. Close it up.
Okay, so when I first came here back in 2001, I used to go for walks really early in the morning, just after the sun came up in Bangkok, and just walking through the city. And I used to see these Thai guys outside the 7-Elevens kind of huddled around, drinking out of these little brown glass bottles. And I'm thinking, like, man, these guys are chugging alcohol pretty early in the morning because it looked like the little airplane bottles.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So I mentioned it to someone I knew that had been, living there longer than I had. And it was like just when I got there and to Bangkok. And so he's like, hey, those, does it look like this? Does it look like that? This, that, and the other thing. And yeah. He said, those aren't alcohol bottles. That's Red Bull. And I'm like, Red Bull, what's that? Now, this is before energy drinks came out in the US. I think they didn't. I don't think they came out back then yet, but I didn't know about them anyway. It's 20 years ago. And I'm like, well, what's that? He said, well, it's like an energy drink. And he said, when the Yaba freaks, and Yaba is speed. Yeah. When the Yaba freaks are coming down off their Yaba binges all night, they go and get a Red Bull. It's an energy drink, and it has taurine in it, and that's why the symbols are a bull. And anyway, so that's how I found out about energy drinks and Red Bull. And then so it had a stigma here that drug addicts drank it. So my friend said, don't let anyone see you drinking it. They're going to think you're a speed freak. So in order to get over the stigma here, they introduced Red Bull as a mixer to kind of like they call them high society bars and nightclubs. Yeah. And there was a couple in Bangkok that we used to go to. And so they introduced it there as a mixer to get all the trendy people to drink it and get over that stigma, and then get the rest of the country to buy into it instead of it having a stigma. And so, you drink it with vodka. And that's how that whole thing. But yeah, I think it was an Australian or an Austrian guy bought the international rights and then brought it throughout the world. So yeah, go on Wikipedia and search Red Bull, and you'll see an interesting story.
I learned something I did not know. And it was one of those things I didn't even know that I didn't know it. But yeah, I remember Red Bull was like, the clubs would always have the Red Bull and vodka, and it was like a big deal. It's like pull out the Red Bull, and it was like sort of like a cool thing for a while. I don't know if they still do it. I haven't seen it in a while, but yeah, I know a lot of people. So you huddled up next to those guys like the next cup of morning, like, hey man, I gotta get a Red Bull, man.
I gotta get a pick me up. And it's funny is it's a lot. The formulation's different here. It's more syrupy and less bubbly. It's kind of, like I said, it comes in a little bottle, and there's like racks of different versions of different companies that sell it here at 7-Eleven. So anyway,
7-Eleven. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, it was always a pleasure to have you back on, man. It's like
Thank you,
went by fast, and it's great having you on. You're a big friend of the show.
Thank you. And I wanted to, before I go to, I gotta congratulate you guys on how awesome your channel's growing. You guys deserve it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it continue to grow. And the content, the depth of your content continues to grow as well. So congrats to you guys. I tip my hat.
Thank you, man.
You guys are doing awesome. And Jeff, you're still here. Oh yeah, Jeff's still here.
Jeff
as well. So I always look forward to checking out your show, either lurking in the background or catching the replay. So you guys you're knocking it out of the park. So congrats.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's great. We always say we have the slowest growing channel, but we have the smartest people in crypto right here, always in the chat, watching our videos. They drop just amazing comments that Jeff and I will talk about and we'll feature on the show. Jeff says we need an OTC espresso infused drink. Jeff, you are absolutely right once again. I always like you. Yeah, and then he also says, appreciate you, DNI.
Thank you, man. You too. You
So-
guys had me on the show. I really appreciate it. Next time we got to do it when Jeff's available too.
Yeah, we'll do it. Remember, we used to do the round. Say we had 4 people. And
Yeah.
it was like everyone
Yeah.
jumping in there. Well,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun too. We'll bring it back, man. We'll make sure, and
Yeah.
Jeff's going to be here next time. Just sort of worked out that way, and we kind of booked this
Sure.
a little bit. But man, I was glad because I remember Jeff streamed last Saturday. I was like, you were in there when I was chatting with you. I was watching Jeff, and I'm like, dude, why don't you come on the show next week? Come on the show next week. And it's like, so I
Yeah.
ended up being tonight, So
Thanks for inviting me, man. I appreciate it.
yeah, man, we'll have you back when Jeff and I we can drill into some other things, go on an exploration and workshop some stuff right here and talk to the crowd and everything. And it's always great. It's good to see Wen Mullet here, Connie, Oscar,
Connie.
Jim. I mean, everybody's in here. It's really cool to see that.
All kinds of OGs here.
There's Connie right there. Yeah.
Connie.
And so that's kind of cool to see everybody here. All I know is I don't know what this means, but Bruce Willis is right. So I can tell you. I don't know what that's. Hey, DNI did an amazing job tonight. Looking forward to seeing you back on very soon, says Jeff in a comment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you, says XRP New Zealand. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. Van Life, another OG. Jeff semi-retired from On the Chain and ready, too rich and famous. Yeah, come on, Jeff. I got to coach him to get back on it. Don't worry. Jeff will be revved up for Saturday morning. We stream 6 days a week, Sunday through Thursdays, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then Jeff does his special secret, super awesome rants Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. And then if that works pretty much for everybody. That way it's at night for you. When you're chiming in there, it's 9 o'clock for you? No, 7 o'clock.
What here?
So yeah.
I got up at 6:30 a.m. for you guys today. So
that's awesome, man. And Jeff and I were reminiscing the other night about the fact that you streamed your wedding, and I almost had this recollection that I was at your wedding because you streamed it. And we were all like hanging out, and your wife, and it was just such a cool thing, and it was neat to sort of partake in that for a moment. But like my memory is of the cake and of the room and of the event goers, and that was really cool, man. I was like,
that was fun.
When was that, by the way? How long? What day was that?
February 29th, 2020. Ha! You tried to catch me, didn't you?
I did not, but you got that weird look in your eye for a minute there. You were like, come on, man, pull it out. But sometimes you get put on a spot, like something. They'd be like, what about that? You'd be like, I knew 3 seconds ago before you asked me. And sometimes you get put on the spot, and you're like,
yeah.
So,
and we got married actually legally 3 years earlier, and then we finally did the ceremony. I wanted to do that for her and her family, and
what a party it was, man. What a party. And your wife is she's pretty awesome and bubbly and just gorgeous, and man, what it was really great.
Thanks.
Man.
Thank you. Yeah. She deserved a big day like that.
She was living the greatest day ever. You guys both were, and man, to see the happiness and everybody else, it was a cool party. Yeah.
And then we did the tie ceremony earlier in the day, which was very interesting. I never experienced anything like that. So I was in all the Thai traditional wedding clothing, and so was she and everyone. It was a long day, long day. So anyway, but
in a beautiful way.
Yeah. So it's all good. It's all good.
It's all good, as they say. What is Jeff saying here? Wait, what's he saying here? Yeah, going to DNI's wedding, January 29, 2020 was awesome. Yeah, that was cool. It seemed like a lot of the community was watching that. And that was pretty fun, man. It was pretty cool. So anyway, guys, we're going to get out of here. DNI, thank you for coming in here. Follow Digital Nomad Investor on Twitter. Reach out to him if you have anything going on with Coinbase. And as always, we will see you on the next one. Jeff will be back on Saturday. DNI will bring him back when Jeff's here. And we are out of here in 3 seconds. Let's go.
See you guys.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.